What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Hospitality Next. I'm Sal Capizzi, SVP of Growth and Marketing at Tribe. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Jordan Hollander, co-founder of Hotel Tech Report, the hotel industry's app store where millions of professionals discover tech tools to transform their businesses. Jordan was previously on the global partnerships team at Starwood Hotels and Resorts. Prior to his work with SPG, Jordan was director of business development at MWT Hospitality. Jordan, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Sal? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing heading into 2026?
I'm ready to rock. A lot of changes happening in this market. We're pumped to be at the center of it all.
A lot of growth in the hospitality technology space as well. A lot of companies, including Tribe, getting new funding, more growth, ready to rock and roll. It seems like 2026 is the year that the technology industry sets it ablaze.
100%. I think when you look at the dynamics for hospitality, there's all like, and you kind of overlay that with the AI revolution. You have two things happening simultaneously, and like the first thing is everything is becoming less and less real in our social lives, right? Like
Yeah.
social media, AI chat assistants, like deep fakes. And so we're looking for more human experiences where we go to hotels, spas, restaurants, social clubs to have those experiences. And then, so there's this huge demand and persistent demand for hospitality. And then on the back end, you have AI that's making all of the kind of back office tasks, which are really costly for hotels, more efficient. And so it's like you've got strong demand and strong cost reduction trends on both sides, which is like this is a great place to work, to invest, and to grow your career.
Of course, Jordan, Hotel Tech Report has become a go-to resource for thousands of hotel leaders researching technology. As we look forward towards the future, what major shifts in hotel tech adoption do you see becoming mainstream and which are still a bit misunderstood?
Yeah, I think we're finally seeing kind of category standardization in hotel technology. And so, I mean, the big one is guest experience tech. Like, and again, this isn't necessarily just the last couple of years of AI, but when I started in this business, when we started our company about 9 years ago now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're getting there. We're not a startup anymore. When we started this business, like guest experience tech was taboo for venture capitalists. Nobody wanted to touch it. They were like, oh, this is like a nice to have, or it's a feature of a PMS. And what people saw is that there's this like guest experience or get digital guest journey platform that emerged where you're able to upgrade guests when they arrive. You're able to upsell them on things. And so when you have cost pressures in the business, whether that's high interest rates, high labor costs, the only thing you could do is kind of get more out of your existing base, or you could go out and bring in new guests. Bringing in new guests is really expensive as advertising cost goes up. And so this is like the most profitable way to kind of like build NOI, and it has the most leverage because your guests are already in house. So every incremental dollar is so much less expensive essentially for you. And so in terms of tech adoption, like I think we're already well on the way, and you see it with kind of Canary doing a global rollout at Wyndham and a bunch of other huge deals like Magic out of Germany. There's a lot of really cool companies in this space, but I think guest experience, digital guest journey is like no longer a nice to have. Everybody knows it. The secret's out, and we're seeing tons of adoption in that space from hoteliers. And yeah, I mean, really across the board, just digitization. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, more throughout the episode, but it used to be the perception that it's like you've got this IT guy who's like an expert on technology and like he or she is the only one who's involved in the technology decisions. And now it's like the IT guy or gal is like managing servers, making sure that everything in compliance is in place. But there's been a democratization of decision making. And it's like if you're buying Tribe, you're like a spa manager. The CIO is not buying Tribe because they're not the one using Tribe. And so there's a democratization. The adoption is kind of diffused into the departments. And the people using the software are the buyers of the software, which is an amazing time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to touch on AI. We talked about it a little bit. AI is clearly reshaping hospitality from guest personalization to that operational efficiency. What are the highest impact AI applications you're seeing hoteliers embrace today, and what should they be preparing for in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think today, like as with a lot of things in business, like the initial innovation happens around revenue, and it's like how do you generate additional incremental revenue? And so we've seen a lot of innovation when it comes to like reservations handling. So going from you can only book on the website. Well, historically you could only book over the phone. Then it was website bookings and OTAs, and now we're kind of circling back and giving people that phone reservation experience again. Also live chat on the website, but more conversational booking flows.
Right.
So we've seen a ton of innovation there, ton of innovation from like an LLM optimization. So new discovery channel. It's not just AEO, there's GEO now. A lot of the fundamentals are similar, at least Google seems to say so. Microsoft seems to think otherwise. I tend to agree with Google on this, and I wouldn't bet against Google on search and discovery. So LLM optimization is huge. Understanding how to surface your hotel in these channels. A lot of the concepts are the same, but hotels have had to get smarter with how do you get placed in media? How do you
Yeah.
tell unique stories around your hotel? How do you put out the content that's surfacing in the LLMs in a way that, hey, like if you're a boutique hotel near the Golden Gate Bridge, what are the things that people are searching for around the Golden Gate Bridge? Are there kind of like tentpole restaurants, hotels near restaurant A, or different activities they're looking for? So really getting smart about discovery and then optimization. How do you serve that information on your website? And what's coming next is kind of like MCPs, like, or how do you have a direct feed of your inventory, like retailers are doing now into LLMs? How do you have a direct feed of your hotel inventory? And so there's a lot of people kind of working on this right now. There's definitely not like a clear winner or a standard. So I think that's coming. But I think also in terms of today, it's like that AI upsell, that AI kind of conversation. Again, this is one of those things where with guest journey, digital guest journey technology, they experience the same kind of like confluence of events in a similar way to the hotel industry in general. But you kind of have the ability of these tools. At first, they started, it was just chatting with the hotel, like through guest messaging. And the hotels were like, gosh, shit, I don't want to buy guest messaging software because then people are going to write to me a lot more.
Right.
And that's going to take up more of my staff time. And I have labor issues. So why am I going to add this? And then also I can't sell anything through it. I'm just talking back and forth. So there's
Right.
no revenue and it's a lot of work. And now it's like, okay, well, we have payments embedded in this. You could
Yeah.
upgrade your room, you could order room service, you could book a spa appointment, and it's all native. So you have upside. And then also, oh yeah, my front desk isn't getting burdened anymore because 85% of our chats are getting resolved by AI. So I'm making money and I'm doing it for free. So it's like this essentially like a really good value prop for them. So this whole digital guest journey from an AI perspective is just unlocked so much. And I'm sure you guys are seeing in your spa booking data too.
Yeah, absolutely. AI is huge right now. Even pre-booking. I was actually just recording an episode with Ted Horner, who we all know and love, and he uses AI to map out his entire itinerary for when he travels before he even books his hotel, and
Yeah.
kind of books based on what AI tells him to do in a certain city or country or continent that
Yeah.
he's in. So it's helping everyone.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Hotel software stacks are rapidly expanding, yet many hotels still struggle with integration. In 2026, what's the role of connected platforms versus best of breed solutions, and how should operators think about building their tech ecosystem?
Yeah, this is a really complex one. I don't have a fully formed point of view, but what I'll tell you, like, and I'll tell you why. So on one hand, the platforms have this huge advantage in that with AI, you can develop features and whole products much faster and cheaper, right? So if you're a PMS, you could build an RMS much easier today than you could 5, 10 years ago. But on the other hand, integrations are becoming cheaper. So, like my thesis or my hypothesis is that the cost of integration will be zero in 5 years because if you have API documentation on Muse and you have API documentation on Tribe, and you can tell an LLM when someone books in Muse, I want to send them this trigger through Tribe or this offer, or create a custom offer for them in Tribe, and then generate that and text it to them, whatever. All of these things are going to be fully automated. So integrations, this whole kind of industry challenge that's been an industry challenge forever, I think that's going to go away. I think integrations are going to cost nothing. And so for hoteliers, they're just going to want to use the best tools. And so when you look at platform versus point solution, there's an argument to say, hey, like if integrations cost nothing, point solutions should thrive because you could just adopt it and plug it in at zero cost. But there's another kind of like the flip side of that coin is if it's like the Muse or Codbeds or Oracle of the world, and when they acquire a customer on Hotel Tech Report or Google or LinkedIn or whatever, they get a lot more economic yield out of the back end of that customer. So like an example would be today, Muse can buy a lead through Hotel Tech Report, and now they've acquired Atomize and FlexKeeping. So if that lead doesn't want Muse or they go to another customer, they can now upsell them on a revenue management system or operations software. So you essentially, or they could adopt Muse and then they could add revenue management software. So there's a higher LTV per customer. And the reason I mentioned that is because now what that means is Muse can spend more to acquire customers. And they can also invest more in innovation, which makes their products better. So there's kind of a virtuous cycle that happens, which leads me to believe that kind of platforms will have a slight edge in this race. But that's only really for undifferentiated point solutions. I think when you have a differentiated point solution that really solves a unique problem with novel technology, it's not like any PMS could recreate Tribe tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it really depends on where you are. If you're not adding this kind of unique incremental value as a point solution, you're probably screwed. But if you're doing some really unique value add work and they're going deep with your customers, I think it's a better time to be a point solution than it ever has in the past.
Absolutely. And 9 years in, Hotel Tech Report's growth shows that hoteliers are doing more research online before buying tech. In your opinion, how has the buying process evolved, and what's one mistake you see properties making when evaluating or implementing new solutions?
Yeah, I think, and it's not necessarily unique to the hotel industry, but a lot of times people perceive doing anything in a B2B environment as like above and beyond what they have to do. Like making any change, shifting inertia is always difficult, and buying software feels like this huge Everest that you have to climb. And you're like, man, I really don't want to implement that new CRM. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
a huge bitch, and I'm not getting paid for this. And I'd rather just use the one I have, even if it's not perfect. And I think there's a lot of this procrastination and this kind of perception that it's going to be such a huge behavioral change. And granted, there are, if you're implementing new spa software and you have like 40 team members that you need to train on it and reservations coming in, there's a complexity to it. But I think hoteliers kind of procrastinate too long, and this inaction is a huge cost to them that isn't showing up on their P&L. So I think that's one of the things that we've seen hoteliers in a positive way. We've seen them procrastinate less. Like, 20 years ago, you had to fly out to a trade show and like at this kind of like weird science fair experience, like try checking in a guest on a PMS, and like all of a sudden, like you should now know if you like that PMS or not, or like did the salesperson, like were they attractive, like were they
You're
charming?
right.
Like, so it's like that whole process. Then you get home and you have to pitch so many different people internally. Now it's like, oh yeah, you could go on Hotel Tech Report, get a quick list of solutions, read what other hoteliers are saying about it, go try those in a demo environment virtually, and you could build up your kind of diligence and information really quickly. So we've seen that like in terms of the evolution of software buying. Like I said before, it's been democratized where the people buying the software are the users, which didn't used to happen. And now it's way easier for them. So they are buying and trying much more frequently, which is really encouraging to see. And there's all these, I mean, sure, you guys have them at Tribe, where it's like you have these innovative customers who are like mavens, who are just like, give me any new feature you're rolling out. I want to try it. And they're really excited about technology and they want to learn about it and they're excited about it. So I think that like that maven group growing has been one of the coolest things that we've seen. In terms of things that hoteliers still aren't doing enough of, I would say just this kind of, the average LTV of a property management system is 6 years. So that's 6 years between buying decisions, assuming a hotelier doesn't move to a new property where they're like adopting a PMS in that moment. So in the time between purchases, there's not enough engagement in my opinion. And I think that hoteliers should, number one, they should spend a lot more time with their existing vendors. Like they have these great customer success teams and product teams and company like customer events that they could go to and like learn about the innovation that's happening. Like as a hotelier, you just think about the resources. If Muse just raised 300 million out of 2.5
300
billion.
million. Yes.
valuation. So what's their R&D team doing from a payments perspective? What kind of improvements are they making to their revenue management system? For Tribe, you guys raised a ton of capital.
Okay.
What new features are you guys bringing to market with that capital? And hoteliers should be learning about that before they roll out, so they could start to incorporate it into their business. And the other thing that I always say, and I know a lot of times vendors don't love to hear, is Reed Hastings from Netflix would say to his employees, you should go out and you should interview all the time. I don't care how happy you are. That's how you're going to get the fair salary that you deserve. And I think as a software buyer slash user, you should be talking to the other credible companies and figuring out what features are they developing. Is my vendor doing that? If not, why aren't they doing it? Is that a strategic decision or is that an oversight? And so you can really understand what's happening in the market and take advantage of all of this stuff that is available to you.
Absolutely. And the industry needs to be asking questions. That's how we innovate. Somebody has an idea, somebody wants a solution to solve a specific pain point. Ask the questions, like you just mentioned. Interview, interview, interview. That's how things and people and businesses and products and solutions propel forward. Looking
Totally.
at innovation and ROI, what's one hotel technology trend that you think is overhyped, if that's appropriate, and one you
Yeah.
think will truly transform by 2027?
Yeah, so I think overhyped, I would say like this direct booking obsession. And I think probably Triptease invented it and it's great marketing and Charlie's an amazing marketer and brand guy. And so hats off for like creating this movement that's like spread to every single company. But distribution in the hotel industry should be thought about holistically. And there's going to be times when booking.com is going to be more cost effective than paying a huge sum for a website, paying for sometimes in a CRS or booking engine commissions, especially if you're a branded hotel, a chain hotel, and you're paying the Marriotts and Hiltons of the world. So and then you're also not thinking about the back end of those guests. So like, are people spending more or staying longer on different channels? So it's not to say that direct bookings aren't usually the most profitable, but I think it's just too binary of an approach, and people have become obsessed with it, and people have become obsessed with kind of vilifying the OTAs. The OTAs only have a business because they're helping bring in new demand, and they're kind of compounding their expertise. And so I think people should just try to think more neutrally and holistically and like level-headed, not have emotion towards distribution, but think about, okay, well, if booking.com or Expedia is charging too high a fee, well, funnel your bookings from other channels. And if you can't do that, then it's not too high of a fee. So I think that's been kind of overhyped. In terms of transformation, I think there's like I think about I'm just trying to think of like the last couple of innovations that were like massive game changers for this industry. I think probably the asset light model. It's not a technology, but I think it was Starwood that was the first one to go asset light. But just selling off the hotels, having the kind of brand kind of unlocks this huge growth potential. And then the OTAs, and you look at kind of like Hilton and Marriott and Hyatt and all these guys, their stock prices over the last 2 decades have been phenomenal investments. The OTAs opening up new distribution and kind of ubiquitous distribution. So as I think about what's coming next, it's AI related. I think that, like I alluded to a little bit before, there are a lot of back office functions within a hotel that are extremely costly because these are very high cost skilled labor. A lot of times they're not the most exciting jobs. Like, it's a revenue manager who's in the basement managing two hotels, and there's not a lot of upward mobility, and they're not super stoked with what they're doing day to day, and they're trying to think about the next thing. So it's like, how do you turn that kind of job? And there's obviously regional directors of revenue management, and same thing with sales and marketing, with all these back office functions. But it's like, I think there's going to be, the first thing that we're going to see is a little bit more consolidation in these roles. So a revenue manager today with a next gen revenue management system should be able to manage many more properties than they could previously. Nobody has to be associated with a single property for revenue management, for example. Obviously, if it's a massive, super high revenue property, they may want that kind of peace of mind as an insurance policy. But revenue managers can like manage much more. Same goes for finance. Same goes for marketing and sales. And then we also have this outsourcing. So I think we're going to see like these roles there's going to become fewer of them, but they're going to be much more fun jobs, exciting, like intellectually like invigorating, and most importantly, like high high income potential jobs because you're
Yeah.
controlling much more revenue or saving much more cost for your company. So a hotel group could pay more for that role in order to like get people excited about it and attract the most and best talent. And so I think the second order kind of evolution from that is like the GM becomes a product manager of a hotel. And eventually, and again, I think it's probably not the legacy hotel companies that will do this. I think it'll probably be like a next gen kind of boutique, maybe like a Casa or someone that'll do this. But the GM will essentially be overseeing kind of AI agents that are using software across revenue management, finance, sales, and they'll have like a third party consulting business that will kind of audit that and make sure that this product manager is like making the right decisions for their business. But I think you're going to have GMs become like this really cool. They're already overseeing these roles, but like as they like you just think about it, it's like instead of a GM managing a team of like five, they're managing like five people who are managing five people that are managing five properties. They're managing a team of like 500 people that are doing
Right.
across all different departments and analyzing this data. So I think the roles are going to get much more exciting for on property and corporate. I think more roles will kind of go corporate. Obviously, if it's like a mom and pop's like family owned hotel in
Boutique. Yeah.
Italy, it'll stay like that probably forever. But I think you're going to have more professionalized management in Europe as well, like you have here in the US, even at smaller properties, even unbranded, non-chain. So yeah, I think the big change is more exciting roles, higher paying roles, but less roles, realistically speaking.
Got it. Jordan, I want to go ahead and wrap up with our fast five. For you, boutique hotel or luxury resort?
It used to be boutique hotel, but my wife is like luxury resort all day, and so I've kind of conformed to her preferences. And now
Very, very nice.
I even think that I like it more now too.
Very, very nice. Everything all inclusive, all taken care of. You just know things are getting done. What
Yes.
hotel tech could you never live without?
For sure, like, I mean, nobody can live without a PMS. Like
Yeah.
people will say system of record or whatever, but it's moving to CRM, definitely not moving to CRM, in my opinion. So I think PMS all day.
Jordan, room service at midnight. What are you ordering?
Probably Turkey Club.
Nice, nice. What's your dream hotel destination for 2026?
We were actually just there this weekend, the Waldorf in Monarch Beach. I hope,
Very nice.
too many people don't flood the reservations. Their rates have already gone crazy. But it's the best property in California by far.
Very nice. And what would one word be to describe the future of hospitality?
I just think growth. It's there's so much exciting stuff happening for this industry, and everyone in every industry is uncertain about their like specific role, but there's no doubt that people will want these kinds of experiences more, and that they'll become more profitable to deliver. And so it's whoever gets there first. It's every man and woman for themselves.
For sure. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for joining this episode of Hospitality Next. You can get in contact with Jordan at www.hoteltechreport.com. And you can get in contact with me at sal@try.be. Remember, stay bold, stay booked, stay next. Until next time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks, Jordan.